I'm gonna be real with you guys. If you need accountability, you're never gonna win. That's what no one's gonna tell you. If you need accountability, you're not gonna make it. So you need to be your own witness. Like, and if you can't be adult enough in your own life to be the person that you want to hold yourself accountable to, then you need to go fix that. I think Epictetus is this great quote. He said, if you need, do you know what that quote is? I know you do, Kirby. It's one of my favorite. Um, he said, if you are ever tempted to look for outside approval, realize that you have compromised your integrity. If you need a witness, be your own. And so I'll say it differently. If you are ever tempted to look for outside accountability, realize that you have compromised your integrity. Because if you need someone to hold you accountable, it should be you. Because no one's going to save you. And I see this theme of like, I see the amount of comments I get in DMs are like, Alex, make me money. Like, I don't even, I can't even, it's so far down the awareness scale. It's like, I can't even comprehend it. But the thing is that some of you guys are new and some of you guys are there. And I want to kind of pop that bubble of reality and be like, show me a millionaire who needs to have someone hold them accountable. Because here's the thing, even in the fitness, weight loss world, smoking cigarettes, whatever you want, like whatever thing that you're trying to do, right? If you need someone to hold you accountable to smoke cigarettes, you're never going to get hooked. Like you gotta be able to smoke the cigarettes on your own, right? You gotta be able to do it on your own. I'm joking. Uh, but if you want to lose weight and you have a coach, it's great. Great. You lose the weight, but then what? Will you have that person until you're 85? At some point, you have to take responsibility. And so many of you are distracted, but you don't take accountability for the distraction. And the way that you take accountability for the distraction is being willing to suffer the pain of removing the things that you have been allowing to distract you. And so a lot of you are just a few hard conversations away from having 5 times the amount of time to work on this stuff. And anybody who told you it's going to happen quickly lied to you. You can look at every ad across the internet for Skool. I do not say it's going to happen fast. I say, look at what happened for these guys, and it probably won't happen for you. Like, I say you won't be the richest person in your neighborhood. You're not going to be on the Forbes list, but it can help you get started. And so if you are new and this is your first time, one, welcome. But secondarily, don't expect to happen in 30 days. Now, for some of you, it will, and it does, and that's great. But for those of you who are true zeros, who have never done anything before in your life, there's a lot of skills you got to learn. Now, anybody who's made money outside of school in the cohort we had made money inside. They did. And so what we're trying to delineate, obviously, is what are the fewest skills we can help someone learn in the shortest time period to help them win. Now we got 62%, and we have a long way to go, and we'll try to get to 100 over time, and we'll do our best, you know. But you have to be the one who dedicates that time, and it's not going to happen in a month. And so if you're here and you're new and you're like, oh, it has to happen in the next 14 days, or I can't afford it, dude, you're never going to make it. You're never going to make it. You got to be willing to trade off something else. There's something else in your life that costs you more than this that you don't need. If you truly want what you say you want. If you don't truly want what you say you want, then it means you prefer getting your nails done to having the business you want. You prefer getting the new shoes to having the business. You prefer the nicer car payment or different insurance option or whatever streaming services that you're subscribed to. Just say it like that. Which is, I would prefer to have shoes than have the business of my dreams. I'd prefer to have this couch than have my freedom. And if you just say it like that and you're good with it, then you won. You're great. But if that statement isn't true, then change reality and make it actually match your own ideals. All right, this is just something it's been bugging me, and so that's what I want to talk about. All right, let's talk about some amazing cues.
I asked the chat what their biggest distraction is, and the most common response was related to the content that they consume. They're consuming educational content. So how do you know what's a distraction and what's not when it comes to consuming content?
This is a really good question. So you want to consume information or content relevant to the constraint. So I think general consumption of information is actually entertainment. And so, for example, if you're like, I used to do this. When I was in college, I would watch all the TED Talks. So I watched every TED Talk because I was like trying to get better or whatever. But the thing is that I basically had no goal. And so when you're mindlessly consuming, you want to begin any kind of consumption with what problem am I solving? And if you can be very clear and intentional about what problem you're solving, then it will orient the consumption of the content and you will have a finish line. And this is the key point. The finish line is when you solve the problem. And the difference between education and entertainment is the output. The point of entertainment is to be consumed. The point of education is to change behavior, which also means that one person can watch the same piece of content and get entertained, and another person can watch a piece of content and get educated. Education occurs. It's not that a piece is inherently education or entertainment. It's just that which is it increase the likelihood in a larger audience, a larger percentage of the audience change their behavior, and therefore it's educational. There's absolutely movies that you've seen that are entertaining that change the way you behaved and therefore educated you. And so we can know black and white litmus test if you are trying to solve a traffic problem and then you consume information, then you execute on that information, it changed your behavior. And then if that didn't solve your larger problem, which is you still have a traffic problem, you go back, you consume something else, you change your behavior again. And you keep that cycle up until your conditions change. When your conditions change, you've completed that micro loop and you begin the next one. This is how you learn. And so by all means, I'm not saying don't consume content. That's why I make what I make. That's why we're doing what we're doing right now. And if you get off this call and you change what you do, you have learned. So then it was net positive. If you get off this call and change nothing, this was entertainment for you. What's the next one?
Ryan says, when you start saying no, how do you overcome the feeling of missing out?
Real talk, man. So I just made a podcast about this. I would say that it's taken me 14 years to get here. And I'm like, this is like my lessons and failures of the year for those of you who don't follow my podcast. I used to make one of these every year, like what is my lessons and failures? And so I'm doing it as a multi-part series this year. And the biggest thing, and this is relevant to focus, is I don't have FOMO anymore. And it's taken about 14 years to get here. And it was more that I've noticed it. It's not like it was not something I actively worked on. It was more that like I have now noticed that when I see someone crushing it in something, I'm not like, oh man, I wish I could do that. Or like, oh, I just think like good for them. I'm doing my thing. And basically the more you learn about something, the more you realize there is to know. And then you know that the things that you have this fear of missing out on have so much depth that you don't understand that you know that you're not actually missing out on it. And so my CFO had this saying, she's 65 and she retired when we sold the year after we sold Gym Launch. And she used to say this thing. She said, she's worked in like, I don't know, like 15, 20 businesses over her career, had multiple $100 million exits, $5 billion, like very, very seasoned CFO. And she said, you know what I've learned across all the industries and businesses I've worked in? And I was like, what? And she's like, it's all shit. And she didn't mean it in a negative way. She just meant that like every business has hair. Every business has problems. And so every entrepreneur has this misconception, this distortion of reality that their cousin or their brother or their whatever has it better than them. And so this fear of missing out is that somehow someone else is getting a better return for the work they're putting in. But what it really is that they're getting an adequate return for the work they already put in that you have no visibility into. And so the problem with witnessing someone else's success is that you don't see the work. And so this is what creates the unrealistic expectations. This is why people have 100x discrepancies between what they think it takes and what it actually takes. Because you only see it once people win. And so you don't see 10 years of podcast before it pops off. You don't see the 5,000 pieces of content before we had our first viral clip, right? You don't see that. You just see the viral clip because that's when everyone sees it because it went viral. And so that's one of the fundamental misconceptions around FOMO. is that you actually underestimate. It's the uninformed optimism of the new opportunity that it somehow, some way has no cost and only upside. And it's just not true. Everything has hair. Bezos said everything has overhead. There's always stuff that's not good. And so I think I've just had enough experiences of jumping, and maybe you go need to jump a few more times to learn it, but I hope you can get the scar without the lesson, or rather the lesson without the scar. That the hardest lesson I've had to learn as an entrepreneur is focus, which is why I talk about it so much. But there is no opportunity out there that's better than the one you have, because you just need to get better anyways, regardless. And that's a constant.